giving us that reading from the book of Obadiah. Thank you also, Brother Cabaluna, for reminding us about the mansion over the hilltop. You know, we may be having mansions here on earth, but according to the song, I'm satisfied with this cottage here below, because you have prepared me a mansion right there. We don't have to worry, my friends, brothers and sisters, of the kind of dwelling that we are having here, or the kind of status that we are enjoying. All these things are just passing through. This body of ours, this soul of ours, were not made for this earth. Let us remember that. At the very beginning, when God created this soul of ours, this body of ours, this was intended for heaven. This was intended for a permanent place. Only that there was a bump along the way. Because of sin, what happened? Here we are. But again, God is trying to restore that. He will soon reclaim us. Because as I said, this body of ours, that body of yours, was not intended here in this world. That's why we are just passing through. We may have this kind of acquisition that we are having now, but don't delight on this kind of acquisition that you have here on earth, because those are just temporary. There is heaven. There is a mansion that He has prepared for all of us. Anyway, I'm happy to be back here in Apple Valley. We just arrived in Loma Linda about October the 31st. That's the last day of October. We were on a 3-week vacation back in the Philippines, and of course, just trying to, visit some friends and relatives. Actually, it was not totally a vacation, it was a working vacation. Because I have to, approach different institutions there in the southern part of the country. That's Mindanao. That's where our president comes from. Our Philippine president. You may have heard him. But yes, I have to visit some of these institutions in order to prepare a groundwork for our crusade or our evangelistic outreach, which will happen in the middle of the year next year. So it was kind of a vacation, yes, but it was a working one. It was a working one. And when we arrived the 31st of October, I was just hoping that I thought I can be here for the Sabbath here in Apple Valley. But since there were some kind of important items that we have to do first right there down the hill, and then trying to inquire from the schedule, I said, well, my second Sabbath is supposed to be in Apple Valley. So today, I'm right here today to, do my share of my visit. But anyway, when I look at the program, I hope you always look your bulletin, because this afternoon we have a special appointment right at Victorville SDA Church. You know what is that? At 2:30 or 2 o'clock? 2:30. That's the Intra Voice concert. You may have heard them. We had them a couple of Sabbaths before or earlier, and they will be having their concert at 2:30 there at Victorville, because it's a concert for a cause. And you know what's the cause of having that concert? The proceeds of that will go to Apple Valley All Nations SDA Church. And since you are part and parcel, we're all part of this great endeavor here in Apple Valley, let's support that concert there, because the proceeds of that concert, together with our friends right there in Victorville, is going to be right here in Apple Valley All Nations SDA Church. I hope you're enjoying your Sabbath today. I know the week has been very hectic to some of us. It has been a very challenging one. We just had our election, whatever the result. It has gone down to the wire, so let's just move on, because I'm sure you prayed for that election. Everybody here in America prayed for that election, I'm sure. And because we are a group of prayerful people, and we always say, thy will be done, O God, then it's here. So this must be the will of God, whatever. We are not perfect people. We don't have perfect leaders. But since we prayed, let him do it, because the Bible says he still rules the affairs of men. God still rules. We have heard, we have read, and of course experienced throughout all these years, especially from some of us, about how the world is being led by people. They may be good, they may be bad, but God is still there. Even in the Old Testament, there were, righteous kings. There were bad kings, rulers, different shades of character, but God still rules, because He does not want that you and I will disappear in this world. He has prepared a place for all of us. So let's just take it at that and let's move on. Let's move on. Well, there is a story that I remember about Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel is an author, and he has a novel that is, or a book that is titled why is it not moving?
Huh? It's moving on screen. Oh.
No, for the next slide.
Oh.
Well, anyway, our title of our message today is Spectator or Participant. Spectator or Participant. I will try to dig deeper on that in our study, in our meditation today. And it has something to do with the book of Obadiah. You know, the book of Obadiah is found in the Bible. Maybe some of you might be wondering, where is Obadiah? Is it in the Bible? Of course, it's one of the minor prophets. You know, it's one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament which has major messages. Minor, but major. There are a number of minor prophets. Those are short books in the last books of the Old Testament that we call them minor prophets, but they have major messages. And one of those major prophets is Obadiah. And you know, his book is just 21 verses. One chapter with 21 verses. That's why when you refer to the book, there is no chapter 1. It says only Obadiah 11 or Obadiah 21 or Obadiah 15, because it's a redundant when you say chapter 1 when there is no chapter 2. Very short book. Very short book. But you know what? It has a major message. Okay, I think it is working now. There you go. There is this novel written by Elie Wiesel. The title, The Town Beyond the Wall. The Town Beyond the Wall. He tells the story of Michael. You know, the main principal or the principal guy of this book is Michael. He was a young Jew. He was a young Jew who survived the Holocaust. So Michael traveled, according to this novel, traveled at great personal risk behind the Iron Curtain. Remember the Iron Curtain? For those of you who are a little older. You know, he traveled behind the Iron Curtain to his Hungarian township, to his Hungarian hometown. Though his memory, as he traveled, burned with images of the soldiers, images of the police, you know, who had brutalized him, who had brutalized his family, Michael returned, not to revenge, but to satisfy his curiosity. That was the main reason why he traveled back to his hometown in Hungary. And you know what did he say? According to Elie Wiesel in that book, this is this part of the quotation. This was the thing I had wanted to understand ever since the war. Nothing else. How a human being can remain indifferent. That's the saying of Wiesel, the author. In a strange way, according to this story, in a strange way, he understood the brutality of the executioners. You know, they were executed. The brutality of the executioners and the prison guards. What he did not understand, according to this book, what he did not understand was the man Wiesel called a spectator. Now there is that Spectator right in that book. He could not understand that Spectator who just lived across the synagogue. The man who peered through the window, looking through the window day after day, as thousands upon thousands of Jews were herded into the death trains. They were herded into trains and trains, you know, for them to just go in order for them to be executed. His face was just gazing out, according to Whistle. His face was just gazing out of the window, reflecting no pity. There was no pity. There was no pleasure, no shock, not even anger or interest. That Spectator was impassive. He was cold. He was impersonal. The face, according to this author, was indifferent to the spectacle. Very indifferent. There is a bond, Michael thought, according to the story, between the brutal executioner and the victim. Even though the bond is negative, they belong to the same universe. Yes, they belong to the same universe, but this is not true of that other. You know, the other or the capital O. This is not true of that other, Spectator. The Spectator is entirely beyond us. That other Spectator, he sees without being seen. He sees without being seen. He is there, but he is unnoticed. That Spectator. Now, Whistle concludes. This was the conclusion of the author of that book. He said, to be indifferent for whatever reason is to deny not only the validity of existence, but also its beauty. Betray, and you are a man. Torture your neighbor, you're still a man. Evil is human. Weakness is human. Indifference is not. Think about that quotation. Everything is human, but indifference is not. Indifference, my friends, brothers and sisters, is a deadly sin. It is a deadly sin. Forever a spectator on the sidelines of life. You are just right there along the sides, looking, doing nothing. It is deadly to be indifferent. And what is that? Forever a spectator on the sidelines of life. Such were the Edomites. Now, according to that book of Obadiah, he mentioned about the Edomites. You know the Edomites? If ever you have remembered your sacred history, they were the Edomites whom Obadiah addressed in that shortest book of the Old Testament. You know, the Edomites, remember, were descendants of Esau. Who was Esau? Who was his twin brother? Jacob, yes. Esau lived in a region south of Palestine. That was the territory of Esau. You know, the people of Israel descended from Jacob. Right? Jacob. Just as Jacob and Esau fought, they were fighting, a feud lasted between them. A feud lasted between these twin brothers. And the people, their descendant groups, for more than 800 years. They were always quarreling. They cannot live together. For more than 800 years, the descendants of the other brother, Jacob, and also Esau, they were fighting for 800 years. There was bitterness. There was hatred. There was always that anger, that hate. Remember, they were relatives. They were brothers. The smoldering animosity between the Israelites and the Edomites billowed. It continued. It billowed into a place when Edom, remember, when Edom aided Jerusalem's enemy. Edom aided Jerusalem's enemy, the great and powerful Babylon. Instead of helping their relatives, instead of helping their fellow beings, You know, they were both descendants of Isaac, they were both descendants of Jacob, or they were both descendants of Abraham. Edom, a descendant of Esau, helped the enemy, which was the powerful Babylonian Empire, in order to what? To capture Israel or Jerusalem. They were what? Just standing there, and they were spectators, doing nothing on behalf of their brethren. So Obadiah described it this way. That was read earlier by Brother Hiram, but I would like to project it in another version. This one is a little bit easier to understand. This is the other version of the text that was read earlier in Obadiah 11. Let's say Obadiah 11 or Obadiah 1:11, if you prefer it that way. It says right there, on the day you stood aloof, very aloof. On the day you stood aloof, on the day strangers captured his wealth, meaning the wealth of Jerusalem or Israel, while foreigners entered his gate and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were just like one of them, doing nothing, indifferent, in other words. You were just like one of them. So Edom, in other words, just stood there as spectators. He just stood there as spectators doing nothing while Babylon attacked Israel. My friends, Edom betrayed her sister. Edom betrayed her sister nation, saying she would be an ally, yes, but doing nothing. She chose to do nothing on behalf of her sister nation. Edom clearly abandoned Israel in her time of need. Edom abandoned her. Then, to add insult to injury, what did Edom do? Edom, or the Edomites, plundered Jerusalem after the battle. Think about that. They plundered Israel after the battle. She captured fleeing Israelites and turned them over to the Babylonians. The Edomites were cold-hearted cowards who deceived their distant relatives, bringing destruction and pain on the Jews. That was the story. That's why Obadiah wrote this, being a messenger of God. Now, what was the problem? Indifference, my friends, was the problem. And even today, indifference is still a problem. You know, a fellow said, there was a fellow at the bus stop. These two guys, they were right there waiting for the bus. According to this other guy, the biggest problem in our country today is ignorance and apathy. According to that one guy right there waiting for the bus. He said, the biggest problem in our country today is ignorance and apathy. The other man replied, well, I don't know what that means, but I don't care. I don't care. Indifferent spectators fail to take notice of their surroundings. They fail to come to the aid of people in need. They fail to get involved and fail to take a stand for what is right. You notice that? So spectators say such pious-sounding phrases like, mind your own business, mind your own business. Don't get involved. Live and let live. Who cares? So what? Well, Calvin Miller tells of a coffee shop's conversation one day with a police officer. While he was having coffee there in a particular shop, he noticed a police officer came in. And he noticed that this police officer had a holster with a different content. Instead of a pistol, it was a can. It was a can. Look at this. It was a can. A maize can. I mean, it looked like a pistol, but it's labeled mace. A mace on the officer's hip. So Miller asked the officer, how does it work? It's not a pistol. How does it work? Well, the policeman removed the can from the holster and said, well, you take the cup, you take the lid off, and spray it in somebody's face. It was a pepper spray. Take the lid off, and then spray it in somebody's face. Then Miller said,
What does it do? Does it knock them out if you spray that in their face? Oh no, said the policeman. They're still conscious but inert. They're still conscious but inert. Then the policeman added by way of emphasis, do you understand conscious but inert? Do you understand according to the guy, according to the officer, to Miller? Then Miller, Calvin Miller, who's supposed to be a pastor, Calvin Miller smiled. You know, officer, I've been a local church pastor for 20 years. And I understand conscious but inert better than you might imagine. Because in my church, there are conscious people but are still inert. So what's the call of Obadiah, my friends, brothers and sisters? What's the call? What's the purpose why he wrote that book? Well, Obadiah, here, that's the other picture of that conscious but inert. Obadiah's vision is a judgment. It is a judgment on a conscious but inert people. That was his writing. That was his call. He calls us to get into the game. Get into the game. To stop just being a spectator. To assume responsibility. Get involved. Get into the game. Far too kind-hearted, decent people have watched from the sidelines. Then they should have been getting involved. Instead of just, staying on the sidelines, they should have gotten involved. We have become lax. We have become lethargic. We have become anemic. We have become apathetic. We wish to have a church right here in Apple Valley. We want to do this, we want to do that. But sometimes we just tend to be lethargic. You know what's lethargic, my friends? You just ask Dr. Jack. He knows that. It's partly a medical term. We tend to be lethargic, we tend to be lax, we have become anemic, and we become apathetic, we have become motionless, and sometimes immovable. Erasmus of Rotterdam was a scholar. He was a scholar who probably did more to inspire the Protestant Revolution or Protestant Reformation. Remember Erasmus? He was one of those who inspired the Protestant Reformation. His writings were just more than anything else. He wrote a lot. It motivated Martin Luther. The writings of Erasmus motivated Martin Luther to take the stand against the church. And when we speak about the church, it has something to do with the Roman Catholic Church. Martin Luther took the stand he did against the church to which he had been formerly educated. Martin Luther was a priest, formerly. He dedicated his life to become a monk, to become a priest. But Erasmus prepared a way for Luther. He prepared a way for John Calvin. He prepared a way for John Knox. These reformers. But when the issues over which the Reformation was to happen, what happened? He came to a head. He came to a halt. Erasmus suddenly decided to stay silent. He decided to stay silent. He was not made out of the stuff of leaders. He was not made out of the stuff of getting into the game. No, he was not made that way. It is no wonder that Luther, as perhaps only Luther could, as we all know about the Reformation, wrote to Erasmus at the height of the Reformation. Luther wrote a letter saying, in effect, according to Luther, if you will not come and lead with us, then come and spectate. If you will not come and lead with us, then come and spectate. And I shall see to it that you get a good backseat. For those people who take action, there is no place for backseats, my friends. There is no place for backseats. We cannot win the battles to right wrongs. We cannot win the battle to save lost souls. We cannot win the battle to change the course of society just by staying on the sidelines. No, we cannot win that. No war is won only by sitting. No war is won by just watching. Because what? Action is needed. Action is needed. Involvement is required. Involvement is required. We are called to get off the sidelines and get into the game. When I see someone hurting, I just need to do as the Good Samaritan in Jesus' parable. When I see someone hurt another person, and if I am in a position to do something about it, I would be wrong not to get involved. If I see someone about to destroy their lives through a wrongful choices or wrongful choice, seeing addictive habits, it would be sin for me not to warn them of the consequences. If I see injustices, immorality prevailing in society, it would be foreign to Jesus' instruction to be salt and light of the world to ignore it. I must act. Let us act, my friends, brothers and sisters. I must stand up for what is right. Stand up for what is right. So Martin Luther, under Erasmus' influence, led the charge. He led the charge to change the course of Christianity. What did he do? He wrote those 95 theses, 95 points. Right there, when he finished writing on that, the reformer, Martin Luther, stood right there at the door of the church of Wittenberg. It was Sunday, and he knew people will be coming in because it was Sunday. But before it opened, it was right there that he nailed those 95 theses, Martin Luther. And that changed the course of Christianity. He nailed those 95 theses, exposing the heresy, exposing the hypocrisy of the church, exposing those bad habits of the church, requiring people to pay for their sins, to be forgiven. That's not right. That's not in the Bible. Because the just shall live by faith. That was always the thought of Martin Luther. He read the book of Psalms. He read the book of Romans. All this stuff. And the phrase will always come into his mind that the just shall live by faith. Your sins cannot be forgiven by just paying homage or paying indulgence. That's not right. That's why he led the charge. Right there, he placed it in his 95 theses and put it there in the chapel of Wittenberg. One day he was called by the empire or the emperor, Charles V. He was called to the Diet of Worms to defend those theses. And he was just there alone. He was alone because he wanted to be in the game. He wanted to stand for what is right. And you know what did Martin Luther say? Right in front of this august body of people in front of Charles V, Martin Luther said these words, "Here I stand. I can do no other. God help me. Amen." That was the short prayer of Martin Luther. Whatever may happen to me, in other words, I will just stand here and defend whatever is right and whatever is true. My friends, in different ways, we sometimes have to face the choice to say and do the same thing. One day, we will have the choice. It's either you will defend God's truth or will just stay there on the sidelines as spectator. Here I stand. I can do no other. Where is God calling you to stand? Brothers and sisters, where is God today calling you to stand? He is calling me to stand. What game is He begging you and me to enter? What kind of game? What noble cause is He punishing or pushing you to take up? So what is the reason for this book of Obadiah? Why should we take action? Why? Obadiah reminded his hearers of the day of the Lord. Verse 15 of that book, the day of the Lord. He reminded them, there will come a time, there will come a day that we call the day of the Lord. In other words, the day of judgment, the day of accounting, the day of accounting. So that phrase describes a time when God would pour out His wrath on a wicked world, judge the nations, and then establish His kingdom, thus fulfilling His promises made to Israel. But the phrase, my friends, was also used to describe God-ordained calamities sent to punish his people at any time. This is what Obadiah refers to here. The Edomites, they have not acted. They have not. They have betrayed their sister nation, their neighbor. They betrayed their neighbor. They went back on their word. God would make them pay. God would make them pay. That's why Obadiah said, the day of the Lord. They would experience pain. They would experience suffering. They would experience hardship and famine. Just as Babylon had destroyed Israel, other nations would destroy Edom. You know Jesus' declaration, which we call the Golden Rule? You know that? That's why it's called the Golden Rule. Here, I'd like to remind you that Golden Rule. Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, what? Do also the same for them. Why? Because this is the law and the prophet. That's found in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. So, right in this particular verse, Jesus points out the positive response in personal relationship. That's the positive response in personal relationship. But Obadiah 15 gives us the negative side. What is that negative side of Obadiah 15? Let's read. It says right there, as you have done, so it will be done to you. What you deserve will return on your own head. That's the negative part. Think about that for a moment. If Jesus gave us the positive part, Obadiah is telling us this way, the negative part. But you know what? Paul reiterated it. Paul reiterated what Obadiah said right here. In Galatians 6:7, I'm reading about the new version. Don't be deceived. God is not what? Mocked. For whatever a man sows, what? He will also reap. He will also reap. So no matter, my friends, how discouraging the day may be for God's people, how discouraging may be for that to us, a just God in heaven will pay sinners back in kind. What they did to others will ultimately be done to them. Remember Pharaoh? Pharaoh drowned the Jewish babies. Unfortunately, Moses was not included. Pharaoh drowned the Jewish babies. God drowned the Egyptian army. That was payback. The man who lied about Daniel in order to have him thrown into the lions, what happened? They themselves were thrown to the lion's den. So here's the finale. Here's the finale, my friends. We're almost done. What did Ellen White say about this matter? It's found right there in the book of Testimonies for the Church, volume 9, page 42. It is a mystery that there are not hundreds at work, where now there is but one. The heavenly universe is astonished at the apathy, the coldness, the listlessness of those who profess to be sons and daughters of God. In the truth, there is a living power. There is this living power that we are carrying, friends, brothers and sisters, but why the apathy? Why still the coldness, the listlessness of not getting involved? Let's get involved, because the last phrase there is truth. There, in the truth that we're having, there is that power. Then further he said, in Christ's object lesson, we can never be saved in indolence and inactivity. There is no such thing as a truly converted person living a helpless, useless life. It is not possible for us to drift into heaven. No, you cannot just say, okay, I'll just drift into heaven, and then I'll be in heaven. No, according to Ellen White, it is not possible for us to drift into heaven. No sluggard. What is sluggard? Lazy. No sluggard can enter there. And then continue. The next slide right there. Those who refuse to cooperate with God on earth would not cooperate with Him in heaven. It would not be safe to take them to heaven. Christ Object Lessons, Page 280. If you want to write that quotation, at least it will remind us always. So as we take action, friends, as we take action, there will be some days when we feel as though our deeds are doing no good. Headlines, will trumpet the glory of things we know are wrong. Evil will appear to triumph over good. Immorality will prevail. Decaying society will continue to crumble. When that happens, there may be a temptation to give up. But don't give up. Don't give up. Don't you dare to do it. Just wait a while. Because you will see that God always has the final word. God always has the final word. The ultimate victory. The last chapter in every story is always His. And it is always good, my friends. That's why the prophet Obadiah concluded this brief book with these words. Verse 21. What is that last phrase of Obadiah? It says there, the kingdom will be the Lord's. For every ending of trials and temptations, there is always God. There is always God. Every ending of the story is always His, and it is always good. Judgment and victory are in God's hands. May we never forget that. Never forget. May we live as champions and winners regardless of the present score. We know that the final victory belongs to God, and with Him we always win. So I conclude these few moments of meditation. One morning, that was December 1955, there was a seamstress, a simple seamstress, and a devoted Christian. She was a member of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Decided to just move off the sidelines and into the game. She chose to take a stand. A bus driver, let me have that picture over here. A bus driver told her to vacate her seat and move to the back of the bus. This Christian was an African American, and a white person wanted her seat. In one of the most courageous choices of the 20th century, we are told, according to the story, she did not move. She did not move, and she started a revolution. The next Monday night, there were about 10,000 people gathered at her church to pray and to ask God, what do we do next? What do we do next, God? And because of that choice, a difficult revolution began. Many were beaten, many were imprisoned, and some even died. But it changed the conscience of a nation. Why? All because of a mild-mannered, soft-spoken, Christ-following seamstress who dared to act. And you know this lady, Rosa Parks. Here is what Ellen White again has to say about our situation. There is danger for those who do little or nothing for Christ. The grace of God will not long abide in the soul of him who, having great privileges and opportunities, remains silent. My friends, we are gifted of so much opportunities, of so much gifts, of so much opportunities by God Himself. So don't ever be silent. Don't ever reject these opportunities. Dare to act. Stand for it, because that is the truth. And lastly, according to Ellen White, let us go. Let us go. Oh, this is supposed to be the last slide here. Right there. Let us go forward. And not what? Backward. Do not dwell on the things that were past. You cannot undo that anymore. But let us go forward. That's why Moses was instructed by God. When they were pursued by Pharaoh's army, in front of them was the Red Sea. right beside them are mountains. They cannot escape. And here's this pursuing army. Moses asked God, what shall I do? You know what was the answer of God to Moses? Go forward. It's an ocean of water there. What shall we do? Just go forward. And you know the story. Friends, there is nothing too difficult for a God giving truth to all of his people. These are all the opportunities. We have all these privileges. God said through his messenger Ellen White, let us go forward and not backward. We want a new conversion daily. Conversion daily. We want the love of Jesus throbbing in our hearts, that we will be instrumental in saving many souls. That is found in Christian Service, page 91. We cannot afford to stand by, my friends, by just watching the moral disintegration of this society. God has placed us to love. God has placed us to serve. We must go. We must rise up in the name of Jesus and seize the day for him, because we can no longer remain on the sidelines. We can no longer remain indifferent. We must act, and act now. May the Lord bless us.